cigars include all that.
We will invite all who would care to stand and join us for the recitation of the Lord's Prayer, followed by a moment of silence. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
it is now 7 o'clock. Shelby City Council meeting is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated, please. Call Mr. Crum.
Mr. Robb.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Gates.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Present.
Mr. McLaughlin. Here.
I'll now entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal from February 1st, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin to dispense with the reading of the journal from February 1, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Robb.
Yay.
That motion passes. Now comes the time for public comment, and as far as I know, we did not receive any correspondence at City Hall. I don't know if any of the other council members had received any correspondence to be shared tonight under public comment. If not, we're pleased to have the Path Forward Committee of the Shelby CIC, Community Improvement Corporation, and very pleased to have them give a report, and I believe Mr. Jake Penwell is going to kind of take the lead on this. If you'll state your name and address, please.
Sure, Jake Penwell, 2700 Myers Road, Shelby, Ohio. Thank you for having us today. I am here representing the Community Improvement Corporation of Shelby. I serve as the president of that organization, that wonderful organization. With us, we did bring our executive team, what we call the Path Forward team currently, but Cody Albert, the vice president, Carrie Kemmer, the secretary, and Dr. Marissa Miller, the treasurer. And certainly here in gratitude, but in one that we feel we owe an update on the wonderful efforts and the workings of what CIC is doing to help move Shelby forward. And you got a packet there. Forgive me for that being not to you last week. We had a wrong email address, but I know Joe printed it for you and brought it out. So I'm going to kind of go through that. I won't be long with you. I planned for about 10 minutes today just to give you some updates. But on the front of that, you're going to see below, invested in the future of the growth of Shelby, that we are driving collaboration between the public and private sectors. And I think council, certainly from a CIC perspective, should be proud, especially in the local area, that we are leading and setting an example for how public and private partnerships work and work well. They do, and it's been a blessing for us from the CIC perspective and for all the citizens and community residents in the Shelby area. So flipping on to the next page, you're going to see the focus of what CIC has been working on. And I'm going to read actually these points on this. And since 2013, the Community Improvement Corporation of Shelby has refocused its energy on the development and implementation of 3 long-term plans primarily dedicated to economic vitality and downtown revitalization. So of those 3 points, the first is we want to be the catalyst for economic development growth by remaining committed to the Shelby Economic Development Plan adopted in 2017. And we are doing this. Oftentimes, plans that are paid for, we all know or have been a part of that. It's no knock to anybody. But you get a plan, you say, yep, that's good, you read it, and it goes on the shelf. I promise you that CIC works day in and day out, and even if sometimes we veer off that path, we bring ourselves back to the plan and say, no, this is what was recommended to us, this is what we know is working, and that's what we continue to focus on. And not only did that come from council's financial support to get that plan going, but also on your continued support to support CIC in its efforts to carry out all of this economic development efforts. And also that comes with the financial portion of it too, which you know well. We'll get into that in just a second. The second, rebuild Shelby's urban core to attract a new, younger generation to Shelby by executing the Shelby Revitalization and Placemaking Plan adopted in 2019. In that, I always say to bring a new, younger generation isn't always the most important part of that plan. We want to make Shelby a place where people want to come and raise their families. There's no doubt. But also we know that there's a whole entire group that we want to make sure that they're proud and happy to live in Shelby. And that comes with a little bit of beautification and revitalization. I always want to circle back and let everybody know and remind everybody that CIC's ultimate goal is economic development. This portion is almost word for word taken out of that economic development plan that says, look, if you're trying to attract companies here, whether it's to retain them, help them expand, or bring new, you need to have a town that people, they say, okay, at the end of the day, we also want our families, our workers and their families to live here, and own a home, raise a family. So certainly that's a wonderful portion of this. And the third is kind of a little bit more internal. Solidify our own organizational sustainability by enhanced board member effectiveness, fiduciary sustainability, and improved internal and external communications. So COVID's been good in some ways. I would say from the fact that actually at the beginning of this, we said, look, we need to make sure that we're getting our word out about the efforts that we're doing better. And we need to also communicate that effectively within our board. We have a new website. It's beautifully laid out, shelbycic.com. Great place to get all of the information about the efforts that are going on and happening within CIC. And also we have a Facebook page that you can go and follow for updates on things that are happening too. Things like in December, we had a storefront decorating contest that actually had a lot of great traction. Just kind of ways to engage people and businesses on things that are happening. But also, if we're strong internally, our external success would be stronger too. And so that comes from making sure we have board effectiveness, people that are active on our board to help us carry out our mission, because we're all volunteer-based. We have no employees that work for us, and we need people to help us carry out our mission on where we're going. So to move forward on to the next, we have 3 projects primarily that we're working on as our main focus. Those are economic development, downtown revitalization, and Shelby Bicycle Days is a project that we keep on our forefront. We'll get to that. I'm going to go through each one of these points, but if you remember Bicycle Days, we are the parent organization of Shelby Bicycle Days, so it falls under our umbrella too. So with all 3 of those categories, they kind of seem a little bit different. Economic development, our forefront, and what we push for the most, the downtown revitalization and all the great efforts that are happening with that, and also an entertainment factor and something that engages our community to want to be together and enjoy time in Shelby too. So moving on to the economic development slide of this. I know I don't need to go too far in detail with this. I know Jessica gave you a wonderful update in January of all the great efforts that she's doing. I will stand here always, anywhere that I am, and tell you that I'm Jessica's biggest cheerleader. I am. She is a blessing to this community. She's a blessing to each one of us and every citizen that lives here, because she fights for us on every level, every day, to make things happen. And she's always thinking, how can we get business here? How can we help people succeed? In a COVID time, how can we keep people open? You know, things that just always being at the forefront of helping us and moving forward. I want you to remind you a little bit from the financial standpoint. The city of Shelby contracts with CIC along with the village of Plymouth to carry out economic development. We contract with the Richland Area Chamber and Economic Development to carry that out. Jessica does not work for us. She does not work for us as CIC, us as the city. She works for the citizens of Shelby, but through Richland Area Chamber and Economic Development. An excellent partnership that I could not be more proud to be collaborating with. And again, on the public-private side, it takes dollars to make that happen. We have a great contracting relationship, and that's what's carrying out. And just so you know, when I say that she's cheerleading for us in every way, we are the only municipality, and you should be very proud of this, that contributes to RCDG, the Richland Area Chamber and Economic Development in Richland County. So we are saying we're here to collaborate. We know that you're the experts in economic development. How can we make sure that that's being carried out here? Every board meeting we have, because I sit on, as part of our contract, I sit on the RCDG board too. She has a slot in time where she's telling about all the good works that are happening in Shelby. We're the only municipality that gets that. I mean, realize the benefits of that as well. So I'm a major supporter of that. And when you look at these, the first 3 points, economic development liaison, Jessica's position, marketing industrial parks, and business retention and expansion programs, those are things that we're currently tackling. In the economic development plan, there are multiple sections of things that we want to work for and work through. All of it does take time. The last 2 points, defined entrepreneurs program and capitalize on historic preservation, are not things that really we've delved into too much yet. Maybe surface level, but not deep enough. We're primarily focusing on making sure our businesses are taken care of and getting in front of them. And in a COVID environment, which isn't always easy. Sometimes that's by phone call, that's by virtual representation, sometimes in person too, but certainly all positive. Economic development is a tricky giant. It is something that we work on daily, we can't tell people about, we can't share the secrets, it's private industry and growth. But when the results come, and you see years worth of work coming to fruition and creating jobs, it's worth it. It does become worth it. So trust me that it is happening. Some of us are privy to information that's maybe a little bit more private, but nonetheless, it is being carried out through all of our economic development efforts. Moving on to downtown revitalization, maybe a little bit more of the sexier portion of things that are happening, I'd say, with downtown, the things that you can see, right? So and we've presented to you all, you've supported and adopted our downtown revitalization plan, you paid for the plan. We appreciate that very much. And always remember, economic development is the backbone, even still, of the revitalization plan. We are doing that to carry out economic development. But Shelby is going to look much, much different, even in later 2021 into 2022, than we see today. And there's a timeline there at the bottom that's kind of going to explain this for us. But a quick refresher on the project. The first 3 points are 3 phases that were laid out for us. We had asked for short-term wins, longer wins, and then longer plans. 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year plans. We've been successful. Main Street Streetscape is completely funded, primarily through regional planning dollars. The city, I know you all are making some investments on some infrastructure portions of that too. When we were able to get some more dollars from regional planning, which was a very positive grant moving forward, so everybody knows, because we had a great plan, right people, right place, right time, it has helped propel us through in a COVID environment when other people really had to pull back and put the brakes on. We did too. I'll get to that in the second phase. But we had things in a row and ready to go. A lot of help from Joe Geis right there. I mean, he's an ace in the hole on getting a lot of things done for us, and it's a wonderful benefit to the city for sure, and to all of us that live here. So Main Street Streetscape, if you look at the bottom, is going out and being awarded in midsummer, probably around July. By late summer, early fall, August, September, you're going to see some construction downtown on the first phase, and then completion in somewhere into 2022. So you're going to start to see some of this work downtown. Be patient as construction happens and goes through, and timelines always do get shuffled a little bit, but certainly that's where we're on schedule for right now. Really, really exciting. Concurrently with that is Blackport Commons Plaza, or so we hope. In the COVID environment last March, we said this is not the time to go out and ask for major donors, ask for major donations to carry out a privately funded plaza. Phase 2, again, to bring back to the public-private, public kind of dollars, grant dollars for phase 1. Phase 2, private individual investment. Phase 3, back into grant cycles, the Black Fork Trail and stream restoration, so we hope. Probably we'll have some public dollars, or excuse me, some private dollars that go with that phase 2. We had a donor actually ask and reach back out to us and say, hey, we're making long-term commitments here. Tell me about your plan. That person very generously gifted and then got us all saying, it's time to get back in front of people. I'm proud to say that as of today, we have privately fundraised since probably about August of 2020, $1.64 million from 12 individuals, 12 donors. With that all being said, one portion of that, the only portion that's kind of more public grant dollars, came from the capital budget. Another nod to Jessica. We'll see her investment, our investment pay over and over and again in her efforts, but she applied for some capital dollar budgeting, and that became in the form of a $350,000 grant from the state capital budget. So another major win for us. Because those are private dollars, working through a couple of things, we're going to start working on that phase 2, and you're going to kind of see those run concurrently, mainly because the capital dollar is asked to be completed by goal of what is written in the, I don't know, the wording statute, however it's written, to be completed by the summer of 2022. So that's not long away, really. So we're going to get started on engineering and design of that sooner than later too. So super exciting that we're going to see a lot of major action in downtown Shelby and change all for the better here in the fall and the next summer. Oh, excuse me, in the next spring and in summer too. The third portion of that, the Black Fork Trail and stream restoration, is on target for where we have always been. It's not at the forefront. We were completing phases 1 and 2 currently. And so with that being said, we're starting preliminary conversations with that, working through some grant dollars. Primarily some of that is tied a little bit to the schools and those changes with Central eventually being raised, and the laying back of the banks with all that too. So more to come on that, but we are working on that. But certainly tackling the first 2 phases right now. You'll see a little bit about on this now in the 4th point, what we call the Shaw Building investment. I'm not sure if anybody really here is that, probably doesn't know it as the Shaw Building. It's something we say internally now at CIC, but that was the original name on the corner, on the building that's on the corner of the intersection of Main Street and Gamble. It's on the northeast corner. It's blue, so I think that really is what most people probably end up knowing it as. We had a donor step up, give us the gift, and we are purchasing that building. CIC will probably close on that in the next week, and our plans are to revitalize, restore, and save and restore that building to what it should be. Big project for us it was a put your money where your mouth is. If you're asking people to do things to their buildings privately behind it, we should lead those efforts by doing it ourselves too. And so we had a donor that said, look, I'm willing to purchase that for you. I'll make a donation to CIC. Great. It's taken us a long time to get here, probably nearly 6 to 8 months. Probably after working through some legalities on things, liens that were on the property. But we probably will take ownership of that in the next probably within the month is the goal. Be patient with us. I'm going to ask you for a little bit of forgiveness, but we also hope to blaze the trail and lead the way on some historic preservation, how these can work and make sure that we're doing things right to get the building where it needs to be. So that's an exciting investment for us, and that will be ongoing, another phase of what we're working at with some revitalization. Facade improvement grants, quickly, you know that you funded a little bit of that last year. We had 2 projects that were awarded grants. Thank you very much, because again, if we're asking people to make private investment, we need to probably help them and give them any way that we can to do that. I hope that you continue to fund that. It's been successful. One of those projects is complete. One is in progress, but certainly going well. And then the idea of placemaking too, something that will be continually ongoing, but is Shelby a place where we're saying, this is where I want to go and what I want to do, where I want to take my family, what makes us feel good when we're there? Sometimes that is some beautification efforts, flowers, signage, those kinds of things. Sometimes it's programming. Sometimes it's efforts of collaborating organizations that are doing some grassroots efforts that we need to help get guided into making things better for Shelby too. So you'll see some placemaking that's ongoing too, and certainly some of those are funded in our private portion. We know there aren't dollars for that, and we're saying we're going to take care of that. We're going to get some help and make sure we're getting what we need to. So a lot of exciting things happening in the downtown revitalization and economic development world. Switching on thirdly now to Shelby Bicycle Days. I'll only hit on this for a second. I talked a little bit about the COVID environment, how that made us do things a little bit differently in 2020. I'll be honest, it's probably going to make us do things differently in 2021 too. Planning an event seems okay. We're in an ever-changing day-by-day world of how this works. Event planning doesn't work like that. For those that don't think, you think you can flip a switch and tomorrow it's there because the rules change, but it comes from year-long worth of planning to get sponsorship, donors, keep everybody's health and safety in mind. That's first and foremost on the forefront of what we want to do is make sure people are safe and happy. So you'll probably see things being a little bit different in 2021 also, but I'm proud of our 100% volunteer group that still gets together and say, how can we do this, how can we make it better? As soon as we know more, you'll see this on our Facebook pages and in our marketing as well. But certainly the partnerships that we have with the utilities department, fire, police, with the city in general is nothing short of a working tool that is absolutely much appreciated from the CIC world and from the Shelby Bicycle Days world. So we thank you for that too. I think I'll stop. The next page is a list of our board. You know our executive leadership team here and the list of all the other board members too. I can answer any questions or take feedback or anything that you'd want from here. Sure. I don't know if I'm allowed to Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
On the downtown revitalization
Sure.
piece, the Main Street streetscape says 2022 summer. Obviously, you had touched on it, bicycle days being important. Is that kind of, at least in the back of our minds, a goal to have that completed by?
Yes. Our goal is that, especially in this world where we don't know what bicycle days would be like this year, in a perfect scenario, Shelby Bicycle Days would be the first event that would take place in there by 2022. Yes, exactly. That's the goal.
And is it same for the Black Fork Commons, or that's probably gonna be a little bit?
And really, Black Fork Commons Plaza is really the portion that needs to be done. The Main Street streetscape is from the intersection of Gamble and Main to the intersection of Mansfield Avenue and Main. So that's kind of that focus area. That doesn't really impact, other than traffic flow, bicycle days as much as the Black Fork Commons Plaza area. And by the way, the infrastructure that's already there has worked very, very well for bicycle days. It's been an absolutely wonderful space to work out. Now that as we enhance it more, they're going to have to do some layout things different, but it's going to be fun for bicycle days to hopefully be the first group that uses that. All, again, preliminary goals based on construction happening the way it's supposed to be.
Yes.
But that's how we're kind of writing the bids for that timeline.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Martin.
One other question I have, and I don't know if the CIC and Path Forward group has been working on this, but obviously City Council can provide support financially through the city coffers, but also we can provide structural policy changes to the way we do things in the city to make things better for our businesses as well. Going forward, do you guys have some kind of policy things in mind that we could be looking at as council to make essentially your guys' job easier, and also helping out certain areas of the city better. I don't know if that's in the back of your mind, or if you have something off the top of your head that you'd be able to work with us on to start moving forward on that piece.
From the CIC perspective, there's been nothing discussed that I'd be able to say, now. Maybe some preliminary conversations that we as Pat Forward have had in our weekly meetings, of things that, I'd say it's more brainstorming, like what about this? Nothing formal, I guess, yet for an ask, but I appreciate what you're saying, because I think those things will come. I think certainly too, as we look forward, a little bit further on in some policy changes that might just be better overall in enforcement and making things fit with the plans and the goals of what we're doing.
One thing we've been looking at with several council members, myself and Jessica, have been looking at is an entertainment zone, or how we do the the zoning for alcohol consumption, especially during bicycle days and that kind of thing. So, it would be, I think, good to get your feedback on that as well, and CIC input on stuff like that, because I think that's part of the whole scope.
Yes, I appreciate you saying that too, and I think again, those are things that maybe we've had some internal conversation with in Path Forward, but not with the entire board. I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire board, but we certainly, when we get to that point, I know those conversations have been happening. We will be back to voice our opinion on and ask for the support that we would need, and I appreciate that very much.
Just one other thing on that. We like to think of economic development in these kind of dollar and cents, but a lot of times, sometimes the policies and things we have in place that we just even unwittingly make it difficult for people to do business here or to live here or whatnot. So I think we have to look at it a little more holistic, and do understand that you have a very receptive council to those policy ideas coming from the CIC, if you do have such ideas.
Thank you.
I have long stated, Mayor, that I believe that Shelby is the crown jewel of rural Ohio, and I'm going to keep on saying it until it sticks. And especially for the things that we're doing, are head and shoulders above other communities around the area, around the state. And a lot of that is due to these public-private sector partnerships we have, and I look forward to collaborating further in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Mr. Penwell? Well, I certainly thank you, Mr. Penwell, for a very thorough and enthusiastic report, and I marvel at the combined talent and the ability of this group to communicate to the private sector what we desire here, and getting positive results without twisting arms. I think the enthusiasm of this Path Forward group shows through whenever they enter a room. I think the room kind of lights up, and I believe that's what's enabled them to have such great success in moving the ideas forward and putting financial, monetary support with those ideas. So thank you very much. Thank you all for what you're doing. And the CIC is, as you mentioned, is a true blessing for the city of Shelby, Ohio.
Thank you very much, and truly, from the CIC perspective and from me and Jake Penwell personally, thank you. We appreciate it very, very much, our support.
Very good.
Thank you.
Sir. For any further items that are coming up? If not, we'll move forward to a report from standing and special committees. The Finance and Personnel Committee met. Gates.
Mayor, thank you very much. The meeting met last Thursday afternoon. We will march through the packet of information that was included with everyone's council packet. We're going to do it sequentially, not in reverse order here, so something new for the new year, I suppose. Looking at the general fund, then you can see the cash balance, $1.2 million, minus the encumbrances, just a little over $1 million, free and clear in the general fund. We go down to the health department, you can see $507,000 balance there, actually $53,000 rounded in encumbrances. The finance director told us that the drop in the balance in the health fund is somewhat driven by the pandemic, and the city's dealing with that, so that's no surprise. Wisely, the health department has brought on a temporary employee who is able to schedule vaccinations. I'm pleased to say my wife and I will get our first vaccine on Saturday morning. And would certainly encourage everyone to get the vaccination. The vaccines, I'll digress here a little bit, editorial comment. The vaccines have, at this point, are proven to be safe and effective. Just as all of us here had our childhood immunizations, and rightly so, our parents did the right thing by us, however many years ago that was. Certainly, this is a time for people to come forward and to get their vaccinations. There are a group of, not just in this state and in this country, but worldwide, a group of anti-vaxxers is the term applied to them. They are dealing with nonsense and not facts. So people should keep the science in mind and get vaccinated. Looking down, we can see the Fund 283, the local coronavirus response fund. We have free and clear $22,000, $23,000. So fortunately, that deadline to expend those monies was extended. Looking at our three utilities, in the sewer fund, free and clear $180,000. That's down from the year. The water, we're down $216,000, free and clear. Electric is down. We knew that would be down because we planned for it to be down. You know, what can we say about water and sewer? We've been monitoring these for years now. You know, they're touch and go, I think, at times. And of course, the thing to remember, we're only 1 month into the year, so it's a snapshot. It's 1/12 of the year. One can't draw any conclusions at this point, but the numbers are what they are. Down at the very last line, you can see we had encumbrances of $1.8 million. It's become kind of a mantra of mine that, you know, that department heads in the finance department need to cancel out purchase orders that have balances on them. You know, some of these balances, some of these purchase orders may be for 2020, and some of them may be for 20 to 21. I know that the deputy finance director, I think, is dogged in her canceling out of purchase orders that are sitting there with balances on them. It's good financial management, but it's essential for us, particularly as we go into appropriations. We need to know what was free and clear as of January 1st of this year, so that we can then make proper appropriations. So we know what our available resources are with the carryover balance plus the income for this year. So it's more than simply something that is in Gatesy's crawl, but there's a real reason to take care of that. Going to the second page, we can see the total budget for 2021, and again, just the snapshot. Expenditures did exceed revenues, but again, that's 1 month. And that will change on the revenue side because as those of us who own property, we know that our real estate taxes are due in a few weeks. And then the county auditor will do a distribution. So we'll get an infusion of monies into the general fund, the health fund, and the park fund. Again, looking at the general fund, again, just 1 month where expenditures did exceed revenues. Going down to the middle there, 101 for wages, the general fund, we can see a difference. Comparing the 2 years, we're up 6.25%. But the finance director said that could be the ebb and flow of either an extra firefighter or a police officer as they come and go and there's openings. So that can accommodate. The one thing that is good news, we're going to look down at the bottom on income tax, and particularly the withholding, that you can see the withholding from businesses, wrapping up the withholding for 2020 being paid in 2021. We can see that the income tax withholding is up by $24,000, which was a surprise, a pleasant surprise. It would be wonderful if that would continue throughout the year. Don't hold your breath. But that is good news under the snapshot. Next page, we're comparing utilities. I'm not going to dwell on any of these figures particularly, except down at the 220 fund. Again, this is the income tax fund, and then the transfers to the other fund, the 5 funds that are the beneficiaries of city income tax. And we can see that in January of just the 1 month for 2021 so far, we've got $13.7 thousand more. So a good indication. The next page, the cash investment reconciliation statement, where we can see where the money actually is in the 4 banks: Avista, PNC, Park National, that's the former Richland Bank, and then U.S. Bank. As of the end of January, in the city treasury, we had $14,462,925.26. And on the top half, you can see where it is invested. We are, by state law, very, very, very limited in how we can invest public dollars. We can invest them in CDs and certificates of deposit, in savings accounts, and in other governmental bonds. And that's where we expanded and diversified our investments last year. So that is a good thing. I'm not sure what the current interest rate is on CDs. If the finance director, he's shaking his head. It's never particularly good, but
I think it's 0.1% right now, maybe 0.2. It's
0.1%.
very small.
So yeah, that's very small. So my guess is the fees that we pay to the banks exceed what we get in interest. That was last year's battle, and probably a losing battle. But the best we can do is jog on these banks and play off one against the other. Short little statement about the Sutter Roush Fund. Finally, we get to the last page, and this is where we do month-by-month comparison of city income tax. The first half of the chart is cumulative. The second is month-by-month. You can see what we had in city income tax collected in this year so far, just the 1 month, $335,000. That's up 4.3% over the previous year, and up 15.4% compared to the previous 3 years. So again, that's a trend that if that would continue, wouldn't it be lovely? But again, I don't expect that to happen. We should be so lucky. That takes care of the finance part of the finance committee. Personnel, Mayor, you mentioned that there was nothing really to report, that we had hired a part-time person for a temp service for the health department, and made a called us and got our appointments in, so she must be doing a wonderful job. So, Mayor, that's pretty much the report that I have. My colleague, Mr. Martin, has anything to add, or if the finance director has anything to add, I wish that they would.
Mr. Crump.
I'll give you guys my quick two cents worth. Very well put, Mr. Gates, with the finance reports. You know, you see a lot of big negative numbers in the various funds. January is a weird month. You know, we have a lot of the funds that have no payments on them. A lot of them have a big no payment due in January. So that causes a big drop, and then the monthly financials cause that balance to go back up. And sort of the same way with the general fund. You know, a lot of our tax dollars, January's sort of a slow month, because the individual and the business returns, those are really just carryovers from people who haven't filed for some time. You know, since our tax returns aren't really due until April 15th, and we don't even start processing most of them until February. The withholding was surprising because that's mostly December. It's either just December withholding or fourth quarter withholding, depending on the size of the employer. I was just shocked to see that was above the 2020 number, because things were going so well in January, February of 2020. So that's a pleasant surprise. I hope that it continues. It was just very, very strange to me. So I look forward to see what our withholding is for the next few months, to see if that's going to maintain that trend. And the other thing, as far as revenues, Mr. Gates also said we haven't received our property tax allocation for the first half of the year yet. So that's why things like the health fund and the park fund have losses during the month. So just my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions for Councilman Gates in regard to his report? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I move that the combined financial statement and the cash investment reconciliation statement, both dated 31st of January 2021, be received, placed on file, and posted to the city's website.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin that the combined financial statement and the cash investment reconciliation statement, both dated January 31st, 2021, be received, placed on file, and posted to the city's website. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
That motion passes. Thank you. And I'll move forward to Utilities and Streets Committee. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Much to the pleasing of everyone's ears, I'm sure I'm going to try to keep this extremely brief. I said I would try, so let's hold off on the celebrations. All right, the ditch petition update. The petition filing date is now scheduled for the week of February 22nd. This will allow for more time to collect petition signatures for the rural area property owners, final review with county officials from SWCD. A petition will be hand-delivered to the clerk of the Board of the County Commissioners. This will provide assurance of the delivery and recorded timestamp. There we are on that. Pollinating field discussion. We are using approximately 15 acres of open field is currently being mowed. That mowing costs us around $2,500 a year. So hopefully by doing this, we'll be able to tamp down on those costs. Soil analysis is currently being reviewed by the Department of Agriculture at the county and state level to help determine what soil actions will be needed to help develop a successful pollinating field. On receiving their report, Mr. Randy Eisenhower, the FOAG instructor, will help develop the scope of the project. Research has been conducted in the process to file an application to become a bee city as well. One of the processes in the application to become a bee city is to pass legislation designating the city as a bee city, which I would think you would have to designate it after you received it being bee city, but there you have it. So we'll be looking for that legislation. So
You will be? Sorry.
keep me on track there, Mayor. I'm trying to answer. All right, stormwater management fund surcharge update. So quick review, the proposed stormwater management surcharge. The surcharge will be listed on the utilities bill under the title Stormwater Management, so it will be transparent. The funds collected from the surcharge will be posted to the 402 fund under the new revenue line identified as stormwater management. The projected annual collection for the surcharge is around $85,000 a year, and expenditures for the surcharge will be dispersed from within the 402 fund sewer improvement fund. We are dissolving the water capital improvement monthly surcharge. That was dissolved on December 31st. Those charges were for senior disabled, $350, residential $550, commercial $650, industrial $7. The water asset management fund monthly surcharge, which was implemented on January 1st as $1.75 for seniors, residential $375, commercial $475, industrial $675. There's more water usage than storm sewer in the industrial piece. And the storm sewer management monthly surcharge, which is proposed, is $1.75 to seniors, residential $1.75, commercial $1.75, and industrial $3. So the asset management storm sewer is equal to $9.75 for industrial. That is the only one that's higher than the previous water capital improvement monthly surcharge. So we've gone over that as well. We have legislation for us tonight, ordinance 7/2021, so we can discuss that further. I also have, was provided to me, different cities' stormwater management things, so if anybody would like to review these, we have those available as well. Utility bills. The utilities office staff has been receiving many phone calls from concerned residents on the whereabouts of their utilities bill. The bills were delivered to the Shelby Post Office on January 29th. From there, the bills were sent to Cleveland for sorting, and they are shipped back to Shelby for delivery, unless the mailing address is outside the Shelby area. From collector reports, most of the utility bills have not been delivered as of the day of the meeting, which is February 11th. Interesting note, utility bills mailed out with bulk postage, they have not been sent back to Shelby for delivery. The bulk postage makes up the majority of the bills that are mailed. Some of the bills mailed out with extra postage have been sorted, returned, and delivered. Residents are encouraged to do one of the following to ensure their bill is paid on time. You can always call the utilities office for assistance. You can also visit the city website. On the home page, you can click on Pay Utilities Bill. This will allow a customer to pay online with a credit card if they wish. They can also view their bill and print their bill from the online place, so you can get your bill. You can also utilize the bill payment option services from the Invoice Cloud. You can pay a bill by text messaging, pay a bill by email, or ACH. You can utilize payment option service from the utilities office, and that bill is paid every month on the 8th automatically from your checking account. That service is free, so customers just need to fill out that application. The February utilities bills were scheduled to be due today because they normally are on the 15th, but because of the office being closed to observe President's Day, the bills are were due today. Before us tonight, and we'll have to suspend the rules to take it up via emergency, is Resolution 7/2021, which would postpone the late fees for this month because of this issue. Obviously, this is a recurring issue with the post office. We're going to have to look at this. I think getting out to our constituents that they can actually view their bill online, even if they don't print out their bill, they can at least view it, see what's due, and get that to the post office. Post office, don't do that. Utility office, go straight to utility office. Will be helpful. But yeah, I think my bill is late again because I do automatic bill pay. But they mail a check, so that's at the post office as well. So, great post office crisis. All right, balance levelization rate rider. Refresher of this: the balance levelization rate rider is an authorized action from council to lower the electric fund balance by $1 million over a 5-year period. So our target is to lower the fund balance by about $200,000 per year. Since its inception, we've had $179,476.15 worth of credits. So we are going, we're going to adjust that and propose to adjust that again in legislation tonight to, again, further meet our goal of that 200,000 and 1 million over a 5-year period. So, as promised, we said we were going to continue to look at this, and further adjustments may be necessary, and indeed, they are. Let's see here. So the proposed amended negative rate rider is a 0.0022 negative rate rider. And so the projected credit for this year would be $207,455. Would get us back on track, and that is ordinance 6/2021 this evening. So we'll talk about that more. Generation rate. Generation rate is one of the components in the energy charge on the electric bill that influences the cost per kilowatt hour. That rate has been reviewed and adjusted several times the last few years. And with closing of the 2020 fiscal year, the revenues and expenses are currently being reviewed. The initial review showing a positive performance. The revenues exceed expenses. The cost of service for the operation and maintenance is lower than the current collection. And as such, there's a final review is being planned to be presented to this committee at our March meeting, and we hopefully will be able to do another rate adjustment. So I look forward to that. All right. The weather outside is kind of frightful, and therefore it is the annual time of the year where we get to talk about salt. That's one of my favorite topics. All right. Service department crews have been extremely busy this winter, and that was before the last couple days. Crews have been out 33 times to salt streets over the last several months. What a lot of people don't understand there is that it's not just big events like this event and one like a week and a half ago. Our crews go out quite consistently, and so for 1-inch snow events, that can plague our roads with slippery and dangerous conditions as well. And so we have to apply salt across the city, how we do for a 1-inch snow event, as we would a 6-inch snow event, right? So just because it feels like we haven't had that much snow, we have had quite a few 1-inch snow events. So we've been out 33 times so far this year. Our storage bin capacity is 1,600 tons. Our average annual usage is 1,600 tons. This salting season, we've already exceeded that average usage, and again, this was the report on Thursday. Hasn't improved. We haven't magically grown salt in the last couple days. So salt in stock is 400 tons, and we have ordered 400 tons. And so I would assume salt in stock is no longer at 400 tons. Our salt prices and tonnage obligations, our ODOT contracted price is $55.96 a ton, and that requires us to buy 1,200 tons. We have obligated, that obligation has been fulfilled. That contract does allow us to purchase up to 110% of the tonnage, and so we're going to get an additional 120 tons out of that. The county salt price is $39.79 per ton. We're currently buying salt from the county. We've ordered 400 tons. We plan to order another 200 tons. If the budget allows, we'd like to continue to purchase salt from the county to replenish the storage bin, but this action will require legislation to authorize the additional purchases. Current purchases are nearing the $25,000 threshold. During the committee meeting, we basically said, hey, if we can get salt at $39.79 a ton, get as much as we possibly can. There are questions about the contract on that. I don't know if Mr. Insman has an update on where we're supposed to reach out to county. I don't know if they've been able to. So interject.
Not this time.
Not this time. Okay. So we're still waiting on that, but the intent is to purchase as much as we possibly can because, again, it was just a couple years ago. We were at, what, 120, 110?
102, yes.
Yeah.
All over home, right?
Yeah, well over 100. So obviously it's significantly better. So, we're going to have to stock the salt bin eventually anyway, so we can either do it now at those prices or in the fall. At predictably probably higher prices. So, we have recently implemented a conservative salting procedure. We usually stop salting in March, and our salting procedures to conserve salt are as follows. And this came about because of that year where we had extremely expensive salt. Our salt applications are hills as needed, Whitney Avenue Railroad Bridge, full application on the overpass, bridges as needed, secondary roads, intersections only or as needed, Main Street gets intermittent salting, as well as Gamble Street, and safety service areas in the schools are as needed as well. All right. Paving project. Engineering is compiling and reviewing the final material list for the street paving bid specifications. The bid legislation has been pushed back by one council meeting. We were hoping for this evening, but the bid preparation will need a couple more weeks to complete. So the legislation is on track for March 1st council meeting. Thought for discussion to advertise the paving bid at its earliest convenience. With the committee entertain the idea of presenting the street paving legislation by emergency, and we said that we would look at doing that, considering the pushback, but understanding that we were going to let council know in advance. So if you have any questions about this paving project update and the legislation, we are going to be presenting it as an emergency on March 1st, so please reach out to answer your questions answered prior to that. All right, and then the light plant property demolition, we have legislation being prepared for the March 1st council meeting. There's a change order that's being requested for $10,000. There were numerous large sections of the foundation, the size of a small car that was unearthed during the excavation work, and hence the increase in the price. And Mayor, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Martin in regard to his report? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, the ditch petition that's going to be filed next week, obviously, we passed legislation authorizing you to sign it on behalf of the city. My question is if any of the townships will likewise be signing the petition.
I did sign the petition. It was then given to Mr. John Schroeder, who is going to be circulating that. I don't know if he has any specific target audiences for the signage. You have a little word on that?
I had a conversation with Mr. Schroeder this morning. He dropped off the signature page that had your authorization, your signature under Mayor, and the rest of the page was filled, and one of the signatures on there was a township trustee from Crawford County, I forget which township though. So he was able to collect one of the township trustees from Crawford County, and he's also going to be discussing it through the Brewster County as well, to collect the other signatures.
So it's in process.
It's in the process. He's going to return the second signature page to me next Monday, but he will be discussing it with other township trustees for signature.
And maybe you may give an update. Ms. Erica Thomas spoke of their visiting soil and water, visiting various township meetings. You want to give a little update from that last Zoom meeting? The audience that they had received was mostly had the same sort of questions.
Correct. She'd been visiting township trustee meetings. It was very favorable through most of the meetings that she attended. Jackson Township was very much in favor, of course. There was only one township meeting, I believe it'd be Butler Township. They had a little bit of concern with it because it did not really affect so much of their watershed area. They didn't see the cost benefit of it. But all the other townships were speaking very positively of the addition.
Mr. Gates.
Thank you. That's good to know. I hope that that they're speaking positively manifests itself in that those townships take official action to sign the petition, as we did. It's an opportunity for them to step up and do the right thing. We certainly can recall that when Muskingum was doing their study, the townships, I'll choose a verb carefully, they howled and loudly and vociferously about the Muskingum plan, and we'll put plan in quotes because it was never finalized. So I think if they were so loud in their opposition, the townships likely, then on the other hand, should react positively toward this ditch petition.
Yes. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you, Councilman Martin. We move to the Safety Committee. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, sir. Safety Committee met on February 3rd. In fire news, Mr. Thompson reported that Dr. Bacta is stepping down as the medical director, and Dr. Wu would be stepping in. Medical director was reported because that's needed to keep our drug license, so we have to have that position. Health Department was busy with vaccinations, of course, and they're working on food licenses for the restaurants, which are due in March. Police news, Morrow County Jail has raised their prisoner fee from $60 a day to $68 a day. That'll cost us a little bit extra. Tonight, 2 grant applications will be considered. Resolution 5 will be a priority 1 safety grant. The grant would be used to buy emergency medical supplies for the fire department. And resolution number 6 is a mosquito control grant, and of course be used by the health department. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Roberts in regard to his report? Okay, hearing none, thank you again, Mr. Roberts. We'll now move to reports of city officials. The report of the mayor. Last couple of weeks have been invested again in typical mayoral duties, phone calls, various meetings, email correspondence, personnel issues, administrative decisions, and so forth. I do want to send huge kudos out to our service department for their unparalleled performance in keeping our streets as clear and safe as possible. And again, their reputation is county-wide for being one of the best teams. I say North Central Ohio. So I know they were very, very, I think, Mr. Ensman, if I'm correct, they started like at 4 or 5 yesterday afternoon, didn't go home till this afternoon. So they were on the job continuously, trying to just keep up with this recent storm. So I want to thank each and every one of those gentlemen that paid the cost for us. They paid the price, and hopefully they're sleeping well even as we speak. Sidewalks, of course, are going to be a challenge. We know there are huge drifts all across the city, across sidewalks. Again, we brought this up at the last meeting. We have an ordinance. It's dangerous for folks to have to step off the sidewalk into the roadway when there's a sidewalk that's not passable. So please, everyone, do their very best to get out on those sidewalks. And I know we got more snow apparently coming on Thursday. So, consider your fellow citizens in trying to keep your sidewalks walkable. The Shelby City Health Department has administered over 700 doses of the Moderna vaccine. This includes the beginning of the second round of vaccine for individuals. We have vaccination clinics set for tomorrow and Thursday. This Friday, we will be vaccinating some 300 staff members from St. Mary's School, the Shelby School System, and Pioneer Career and Technology Center. We will have this, for us, a mega vaccination station set up at the Shelby Senior High School gymnasium from approximately 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. This will involve a wonderful collaboration of medical personnel and volunteers from the school systems and the public. We have received today, in fact, we received 500 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. This is our first experience with the Pfizer. And so we will be distributing those. In fact, there will be another vaccination day set up on Saturday. So we are endeavoring to go down through our waiting list. We do appreciate everyone's patience. required to make those phone contacts and appointments, is doing a great job of just, line by line, trying to, it's not always easy, but trying to make in-home contacts with phone numbers that were left with us. If you do, we have recommended that you put your name in more than one place to get a vaccine. Pharmacy, or maybe another entity that's offering vaccines. And if you're able to get in there sooner, that is fine, but just please let us know at the Shelby City Health Department. And that way we can put someone else in your place. I will give a brief report. You may have read that the Health Department, Shelby City Health Department, was reporting activity over the last 72 hours, and I do emphasize 72 hours, with a total of 9 new cases. We've been averaging between 2 and 3 new cases per day for about the last week or so. We had I'm sorry, there were 9, did I say 9 new cases? 9 new cases, 7 recovered in that same time frame. The department has documented a total of 747 individuals who have tested positive for COVID-19 since the outbreak began in March. And of that cumulative number, 702 individuals have attained recovered resolved status. There have been 28 COVID-19 deaths documented within our jurisdiction, 5 from the general public and 23 from a long-term care facility. The department is currently monitoring a total of 17 active cases, with 1 individual hospitalized of that 17. Those are encouraging numbers for us. If you probably remember, it wasn't that long ago, we were in the 15 to 20 new cases per day range. So again, we're hoping that continual health practices being followed, safety practices being followed, and vaccines will take us the right direction as we enter into early spring. There will be a committee of the whole meeting this Thursday, the 18th at 11:30 a.m. at Shelby City Hall to consider 2021 appropriations for utilities and streets. I think it's a wise idea to break that up, and looking forward to getting together this Thursday. So that's my report. Are there any comments or questions for me? Mr. Martin.
On the governor's path or whatever, what segment are we in? We're done with 1A, are we on to 1B?
1B, 65, and in fact, I think it's going to be opening up even beyond that. But as far as where we're at in our age brackets, we're kind of heading into, as Mr. Gates has pointed out, we're kind of in that bracket of 65 and up now. But we're still scheduling some folks in their 70s and even 80s that are called. We're trying to prioritize that group whenever we can. So.
I know that the CDC guidelines for the structure is different from the governor's guidelines. And the governor, for whatever reason, decided to take out law enforcement from 1B. I know that we had some issues there. Have you been able to talk to the state reps, state senators about why the governor took out law enforcement from the CDC's recommendations?
We've been fortunate that the personnel from our police department that desired a vaccine have obtained a vaccine from Avita. But I have not discussed personally why that they were not in that first tier. I think Chief Combs has.
It was very, we were not, so everyone's aware, we were not allowed to put our own police officers on our own list at our own health department. They had to go to Avita, get put on a wait list, and when they had no-shows, they were able to run. Some had to run to Ontario, I believe some had to go to Galion and even Bucyrus to get shots. We were not able to vaccinate our own police officers who wanted to here in Shelby because of the governor's not going by the CDC guidelines, just coming up with his own. And I think people need to understand that. I firmly believe it's ridiculous. You know, we have our own health department for a reason, to take care of our own people. However, we were forbidden from actually providing those shots to our police department. So, anyways.
And I was sort of disappointed that we were not able to do that. Any further questions or comments? All right. If not, we'll move forward to Mr. Crum, Director of Finance.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to keep this fairly brief because Councilman Gates did a great job with going over the financials and everything. You know, all of the normal month-end or mid-month stuff at this point is going on in my department. The tax department is just now starting to get a little busier. We're working through year-end 2020 stuff like the gap conversion and preparing for the audit. And at the same time, working through appropriations. I was hoping to have paper copies of what we'll be discussing on Thursday for you this evening. The snow and the lack of childcare for my children had other plans. So I'll finish that all up this evening, and or tomorrow morning. I had a couple of questions for some of the other staff members. I will email you guys those copies. If somebody would like a paper copy delivered to them, let me know. I can swing by and drop one off. Mr. Ensman was kind enough to include a lot of notes as far as individual line items, as far as why they're changing and such. So I've included those in there as well to hopefully allow you guys to review that and stuff and think about things before we meet on Thursday. And we will just be discussing streets and utilities. Mr. Gates suggested maybe opening it up to doing some of the smaller funds, but I just haven't had a chance to review those. By the way, I do want to thank you, Mr. Gates, and really everybody, Mr. Ensman as well, for getting the information so soon. I'm so happy to do this in two sections and to do it now. I was doing all this on March 18th last year, so it feels good to be so far ahead. But yeah, if anybody would like a paper copy, let me know. Otherwise, you'll get them in your emails tomorrow, and then we can move on. That is really all I have for our report.
Thank you, Mr. Crum. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Crum? Mr. Gates?
Mayor, I would like a paper copy and I'll pick it up.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? All right. Now we'll move forward to Mr. Eister's report. Mr. Eister is not with us here this evening. Mr. Joe Geis, project coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor. We continue to work with ODOT and our design engineer for, as we would call, as Mr. Penwell was talking about, phase one, which would be the downtown and the roadways and so forth. Phase two is how we talked of the improvements inside Blackmore Commons. I'm never going to call this a problem because they've raised over $1 million in this area to spend, so I'll never call it a problem. But it's a challenge, somewhat of a challenge, because we're on the inside of that property, which council has given the control of over to the park board. So we'll have to work with the park board on that one, and if there's any improvements in the right of way, we'll have to deal with council and using the private dollars on city property. So we're having a meeting next week with our law director, try to shore things up, but time is of the essence. We have to get moving to meet those deadlines. So I'm not going to call it a problem. But also, our email server project is mostly complete. We're working on a few bugs. I believe we got, after tonight, all council members will be up and working, and I did change the link on the website for you guys to access through that page. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Geis. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Geis in regard to his report? I might say that server upgrade, mercy. Mr. Mack was here hour after hour. He really has worked hard, and there's still little fires here and there to put out, but he's done a great job for us. So send our thanks to Mr. Mack as well. All righty. We'll move forward to new business. Any new business to be brought before council this evening? If not, we'll go to unfinished business. future use of the Main Street Fire Station. Chief Thompson and I did meet with officials from Superior Ambulance. The meeting was about their assignment of the contract, largely, but then we also did bring up the building and the future, the maintenance and ownership and location. They are going to be doing some crunching of numbers and speaking with some authorities that are higher than they. So I hope to get back with you on what their plans may or may not be in the very near future. But we did bring that up to him. We had that opportunity in the Zoom meeting with these officials from Superior Ambulance. Any questions in that regard? All right. Then 59 West Main Street, the Shaw Building, you had the update this evening. I know we keep saying this, but Ms. Gribben echoed what Mr. Penwell said, that they're thinking we should be within a month now of that property being transferred to the CIC. I think it's in the hands of the lawyers at this point, all the way. So that's where we're at there. I have not seen, to be very honest, I have not looked to see what may be developing. Now we're in this crazy freeze and thaw, well, not much thaw, but that's where I think the difficulties were coming last time is with the ice damming and so forth. So we'll, maybe Mr. Geis, if you wouldn't mind marking that down on your little to-do list, if you would please. Then the Charter Centennial timeline.
Nothing to report at this meeting.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Gates, are you going to be kind of, I guess, taking the lead on this? I just want to make sure that if someone's doing it, that it's not, I'm not neglecting anything on my end.
I've got a folder with ticklers on it, and when
Perfect.
there's something to report at a particular meeting
Okay.
for the centennial, I'll have it.
We always appreciate your historical perspective. The older I get, the more I appreciate history. I don't know whether there's any connection with that or what. So, okay. Any further unfinished business to be brought before council this evening? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I move the council recess for 10 minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin to recess for 10 minutes. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay?
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Council recesses at 8:16 by my clock.
It is. What are you, I know you don't have to, there's no, you don't have to declare this level, but are you,
Political affiliation.
yeah,
I'm a libertarian,
okay.
so I lean more right. Personally, I'm more,
You kind of lean right,
exactly. I personally, on a personal level, am more conservative.
right.
To be the fact that this wasn't long.
Go through life, but I think on a political level, I'm more libertarian in policy. So,
Well, good, good luck.
and what we're here in a second.
Anyway, I mean, if you want to speak
Yep.
to that issue or just say suspend the rules.
I don't know, hopefully I'm I'm tired of campaigning. Yeah, I like talking to people that hate campaigning. You know, campaigning is just,
So how
I
was
hate
the trip?
bothering people, you know what I mean?
Knock on their
Door.
door.
I don't want people knocking on my door, you know, especially if it's political, you know? So,
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's one of the only ways is our little town.
sure.
of reaching
Well,
people.
and it's easy to do it in our little town.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, you know, you don't have to knock on anybody's doors. But, you know, the farther you get, the harder, you know,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the minimum for the petition that I got was 8.
No kidding, I had 10. Mine, no more than, or no less than 10, no more than 30, I think I had 25.
Yeah.
So, and that was just, you know, mostly family in that, you know, up in that area, so.
Because I was expecting, I'm like, well, I'm gonna get the petition, I'm gonna need to get a lot of signatures. I look at it, it's 8. I can get this just in my family.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I did.
That's exactly right, yeah.
But I decided I needed a max of 24, and I got 23.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was gonna get the last one, but I only got the hell with it, I'll just go turn it.
That's the same with me, I could've got, to 30, but I forget what the heck was going on, I was busy or something, well, I took that petition out in November, and I thought, should I have this done, and, you know, back to them by, you know.
First of all, took that to school.
Nope, you know.
Spray your little stuff up your nozzle and there's this rock up there and go down, just to take a look at it. That's preliminary.
Here, these two.
Man, it didn't bother water.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I guess you can buy that, well, it's not, we didn't know.
I was painful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've done him for years.
You get back to this? I don't need it.
I'm both early and I can't
Whatever the magic.
they're downstairs.
But, however, Dr. Charles, though,
Which Wi-Fi?
enough here, but enough to, I'm not trying to dissuade what you're saying, I'm just saying, but enough to ward it off, because that's what Dr. Childless is saying, that they're still recommending, like you, to still get the shot. Because, you know, I'm not know a bunch of people that kind of say this is a threshold we need to draw, it takes people a little bit, 5 months or something. That's strong, that's the difference.
John, when I called this afternoon, and Amber answered the phone, there seemed to be a little fatigue in her voice.
There was 50 messages left that you replying to those. There's a phone in between this and the messages you had phone calls. It was very interesting. Yeah, it was just. She came in over the weekend. And it just, we still couldn't get through. There's just something that
What's the soonest we can get bills
Less severe,
and to
that's
the
the
post office?
fine.
I'm not trying to blame the victim, but
No,
it's like,
no.
we need
That's
mail the
exactly
29th. You know,
That's the thing you need to
if they
do.
could be on the 27th, you know, it's, you know.
I just had a meeting with the staff a few weeks ago, before the January bill.
The mayor's got a
See, as
choice.
soon as we can get these populated,
All those
send it. So, yeah, we're in the, probably 25th. So, yeah, I mean, that may be the earliest, but I think that's, we're shooting 26th, or we're shooting yeah, soon check, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a discussion in the office. As soon as we can get these populated, get them ready to go.
So you got the whole wires.
I can see his face, I think his last name is C,
You should know this.
president of one of the postal sections, and you recall, just about every time, you know, they do something, you know, they come here and come up, this is not gonna work, this is gonna be late, and it's like, does this man have some sort of oracle? But
I don't want those real cold guys, they'll bring our other one down.
to take them into the post
And it
office,
shows your higher low.
hand them over the counter, and they didn't leave town.
Sure, right, they stayed right here.
The swords
So
are
right here, I've had the conversation.
I don't want to throw those findings and throw that all.
Her direction is it needs to go to the.
They're wrong.
That was the response last week as well.
So that's the idea, we'll have a mellow out and the other bridge.
Doing what she has to do, and I knew this, like, oh, just hand it to the clerk, I mean, this is kind of like, la la la, la la la, you know. But, you know, they can look at an address and say, oh, this goes, you know, in this bin or wherever.
It's challenging.
So, I got a Christmas card from a cousin in Rochester suburb, and it was December 16th, Rochester. And then there was an additional postmark, January 6th, from Cleveland, and we got it last week. You know, it's like, okay.
Anything you ready?
Yeah, we've been here for the rest of those stories as well.
The other story I'll tell about the postal service, well, I think we're gonna get started. Hold it.
No, we're fine, we got another minute.
No, this will take longer than a minute.
Oh. I got a minute and a half.
It's a story about my father, so. it'll take
Oh!
He was a young boy in military school.
Oh.
It's a joy. It's a joy.
Didn't I read your dad was he the first freshman that played football?
Yes, yes, he was. Yep.
That was a.
That's how he got busted out of military school. He was able to come back because he made the team. So how a good Lutheran boy ends up at an Episcopal military school in Niagara Falls, New York. I was smart enough never to ask my father that. I did ask my mother, and she had a cryptic answer.
Well, I said, yeah, that had to be pretty fascinating to be able to make that team for freshmen.
Wow. What year?
About 30, graduated 35, so maybe like 31, 32.
30, 31 season.
13. The era, I think.
Father was built like a fire plug.
All right. 8:26, council comes out of recess. Moving forward then with legislation, Mr. Crawford.
Ordinance number 4, 2021, amending chapter 1466, flood damage prevention, section 1466.24, use and development standards for flood hazard reduction, residential structures of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby, Ohio.
Move it third reading.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Robb and a second by Mr. Roberts for the third reading of ordinance number 4, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Ordinance number 4, 2021 passes its third reading.
Move for passage of the ordinance.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Robb and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of ordinance number 4, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Ordinance number 4, 2021 passes.
Ordinance number 5, 2021, enacting section 242.08, waive the utility bill late fee of chapter 242, Director of Public Service of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby, and repealing resolution number 2, 2021.
Move second reading.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Gates for the second reading of ordinance number 5, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Ordinance number 5, 2021 passes its second reading.
Ordinance number 6, 2021, amending chapter 1050, electricity, section 1050.02, rates and charges for service, balance levelization rate rider of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby, Ohio.
Move first reading.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts for the first reading of ordinance number 6, 2021. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay?
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Ordinance number 6, 2021 passes its first reading.
Ordinance number 7, 2021. Enacting section 1486.18 Stormwater Management Surcharge of chapter 1486 Stormwater Management of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Shelby, Ohio.
Move first reading?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin, a second by Mr. Roberts, for the first reading of ordinance number 7, 2021. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay?
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Ordinance number 7, 2021 passes.
Passes its first reading.
Oh, passes its first reading. Thank you, sir.
Resolution number 5, 2021. Authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Safety of the City of Shelby to apply for a Priority 1 grant from the Ohio Department of Public Safety for the purchase of emergency medical supplies.
Move the ordinance as a resolution taken into effect.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Gates for the passage of resolution number 5, 2021. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, the chief called today and wondered if we needed to be present here. I said, no, this is pretty much a routine piece of legislation, routine grant application. So, $5,000 is what we're looking at here. So, I would ask that simply for formatting, if the word on the legislation, the word approved, if it could be moved over to the right, I wouldn't want anyone to misinterpret that the clerk of council has some right of approval of the legislation.
Where was this at, Mr. Gates?
On the legislation itself, down at the bottom, the word approved, you can see it's on the
Oh, yeah,
left
yeah.
margin.
Oh, okay, yes,
If that could be tabbed over.
yes. Okay. You have that, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right. Any further, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay?
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Resolution number 5, 2021 passes.
Resolution number 6, 2021. Authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Safety of the City of Shelby to apply for the 2021 mosquito control grant for the control of mosquitoes and declaring an emergency.
Move the resolution be taken into effect.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts, and I heard, I believe, Mr. McLaughlin with the second. This, on the passage of resolution 6, 2021. Discussion? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I'm looking at the first page of the actual grant application. Down where it says authorizing official, it has your name, but it says Board of Health President. The legislation, of course, is we're authorizing you as Director of Public Safety to apply for the grant, so that the application legislation be consistent. I would ask unanimous consent that that phrase Board of Health President be stricken, and the phrase Mayor/Public Safety Director be inserted.
It's been requested by unanimous consent that on the grant itself, under authorizing official, that the phrase Board of Health President be stricken and replaced with Mayor/Public Safety Director. Are there any objections to making that change? If not, it will be so changed. Any further discussion? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, likewise, the same formatting change on this piece of legislation is on the other, with the word approved being moved over to be above your name.
Yes, sir. Okay, we'll do that. The other, Mr. Crum?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion?
And Mayor, you'll communicate that change with Mrs. Conrad,
Yes.
thank you.
Oh, Mr. Crum and I both will. Between the two of us, we'll get there. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Resolution number 6, 2021 passes.
Resolution number 7, 2021, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to waive the late payment charge penalty from residential, commercial, and industrial utility account holders for the February billing period and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Martin.
I move for suspension of the rules to consider resolution number 7, 2021.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Gates to suspend the rules to consider resolution number 7, 2021. Mr. Martin.
Obviously, we didn't have this on time, as our rules dictate, but it is, I feel, an important piece of legislation, so, we need to suspend the rules to, go over.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Understood what we're doing, of course. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
The motion to suspend the rules passes.
Move the resolution be taken as passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for the passage of resolution number 7, 2021. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, this resolution appears, I haven't had great time to look at it, but it seems similar to resolution 2-2021. I wonder if the sponsor could tell us, what's the difference,
Mr. Martin.
The resolution 2, 2021 gives the ability for an account holder to basically, for lack of a better term, to get one free thing for the year. This specifically does it just for February. So theoretically speaking, if this passes, February late fees will be forgiven because of the aforementioned mail issues, and then the customers would still have that one freebie for the remaining of 2021. And that's why I mentioned in my utility report, Mayor, that it's important that we communicate with our constituents that they can go online and view their bill prior to, because even though we know the mail issues may not be fixed, I don't want them to be doing this every single month. There are little different circumstances I felt this month warranted it, but again, we need to communicate effectively. They can go online, they can view their bill ahead of time. The onus is on them to pay the bill, regardless of if they get the paper copy on time. But there is that one late fee per customer that can be waived for the rest of 2021, as the ordinance that we went to second reading looked at, and then also resolution 2, 2020.
And may I say, Mr. Ensman worked on these as well. I think resolution number 2, they needed to request the waiving of the late fee, am I correct? Mr. Ensman?
That's correct. Resolution number 2 is a request of the customer. And I'll also add that the 30-day wait period is going to run its course on the 19th of this month. So we're still in the wait period, so the office doesn't have the ability to waive the late fee at this time. We're 2 days short. So that's one of the reasons for this resolution this evening.
Mr. Rob?
When does the late fee kick in for the month of February?
It would be effective tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Correct. The bills were due today.
So you haven't had anybody pay theirs yet?
No, we have not.
The late fee?
Right, yeah, the late fee has not been associated
this waiving would be automatic across the board without the request of the customer?
That's the way it was the last time. Mr. Martin?
Yeah, it's very similar to December's, when we passed it for December. We did the same thing in December because of the mail issues, and more importantly, that was people actually mailing in their payments, but they not being received by the utilities department. This is kind of coming and going. But in December, we did a blanket waive of late fees for December.
What legislation was that?
I don't know the resolution number. It was passed the first city council meeting in December.
Mayor, I can go back and look at my records at home.
It would have been the first one. It would have been our second meeting.
Mr. Enz, maybe you can share some.
That particular piece of legislation waived the late fee for that particular week. It did not waive it for the month. It was just that particular, we extended the late payment date, if you will. Instead of the 16th, we extended it to the end of that week. So it was able to extend 1 week instead of the entire month.
And, excuse me, go ahead.
I'm not sure. Again, if we pass this, does this automatically waive for all utility customers without their having to ask for it?
Mr. Enz?
Yes, it would.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Resolution number 7, 2021 passes. Come time for miscellaneous business. Is there any miscellaneous business to be brought before council this evening? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I move that council go into executive session regarding details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or a public office. If disclosure of the matters discussed could reasonably be expected to jeopardize the security of the public body or public office.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin to go into executive session for the reasons so read. Discussion? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, this is perhaps the most cryptic reason why one can go into an executive session. And obviously, if you discuss it at this point, it jeopardizes the security of the public body from the get-go. But trust me, once we get into executive session, the reason for this executive session, I think, will be thoroughly justified.
Thank you.
And if this motion passes, I would ask that you and the utilities director join council here in council chambers for the executive session.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call to go into executive session. Mr. Crum?
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Council goes into executive session as soon as the camera is moved at approximately 8:42.
Grab that stuff. Go on. No, don't unplug it. Sorry.
Do they come back to,
They will come back. Most of the time they come back just to adjourn.
okay, so it's pretty much over then?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks for coming.
thank you.
Goodbye. Yep. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. Superior's still in the fire station. It's not gonna light. There are no lights. Well, there's no lights on the building at all. It doesn't, you'd think they had like one light in the bay and maybe one upstairs, but there's no light in the building at all. That's interesting.
council comes out of executive session at 9:03. Any further miscellaneous business? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I move the council adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for adjournment. Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts,
Yeah.
Mr. Gates,
Yay.
Mr. Martin,
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Council adjourns at 9:03.
John, I was gonna tell you that other post office story. And my father, who was in